settle for our talk conversation right now here on the AM show. It's AM Talk. We thank you for joining us. My guest seated, Dr. Okoboy is here as Member of Parliament for Lejo Kuku. But we're expecting, good morning to you.
Good morning, my sister.
We're expecting Sam George to also join us in a little bit. Hopefully he does that really soon. But I want us to start from a conversation. We're all excited about free SHS, but it's the release of funds that we're looking at. Yeah. Fortunately, there's a conference that's ongoing in Ho, and that's where we want to begin the conversation because of some demands that heads of assisted secondary schools are making. They are asking government to put together what they call a free SHS Bible to serve as a guide to senior high schools who will be administering the initiative. President of CHAS, Cecilia Kwachi Kofi, said such a document will help heads of schools to operate within approved guidelines as government implements its flagship policy. She was addressing members of CHAS at the 55th annual conference in Ho.
We also do not rule out the possibility of some infractions of the rules by some of our members. Hence, the need for a clear-cut written guidelines to serve as our free SHS Bible so that we do not overstep our bounds.
All right, so briefly, that's the call, but what do you make of it? Let me just simply ask you.
Yeah, let me start by saying a very good morning to all your viewers, especially to my brothers and sisters watching from the Lejo Kuku constituency. You know, and I also like to congratulate His Excellency, the President of the Republic, Nana Adutwum Akufo-Addo, and the Education Ministry, led by Honorable Opoku Prempeh, for the courage to go through to actually start the rolling out this policy.
I thought you would wait for us to experience it,
you know, and
then you can say your congratulations.
Yes, it's very important that the one who masters the courage to start such a huge project is congratulated, so to serve as an incentive to go through the whole meal. This policy is the second biggest social intervention in the history of this country, second only to the National Health Insurance, going to impact a lot of lives. And let me start by reading a letter I had, just so we put it in context.
And this is a letter from?
This Ganata Senior High School, from a constituent who wants support to pay school fees.
Okay.
You know, it's been rolled out with the first years. In 2 years, everybody will be covered. But this is someone in school. The total amount is 524 Ghana cedis. And this is the letter attached to me as the Member of Parliament. Eddie, that's the only name put there. The gentleman gave it to me directly, so I know him.
Okay.
Honorable Dr. Okoboy, Member of Parliament, Lejo Constituency Accra, application for sponsorship. I'll be grateful if you would help my niece settle her school fees for the next academic term, counting on your usual cooperation. And this is the amount, 524. Somebody has come all the way to me. 524 will make the difference between staying in school and dropping out and going on the streets. So this policy is going to touch lives at places where we don't have any idea. And that is why I am so excited about the policy. Now, about some of the challenges we've seen, placement and all that. Anybody who's done policy formulation, policy studies will tell you that when you are rolling out a policy, you try to anticipate a lot of obstacles, but you cannot anticipate all. It will only take the rollout to identify some nitty-gritties, and as it continues to exist or to be fine-tuned, you'll be able to iron out some of those differences. Look, the National Health Insurance has been in existence for over a decade, and yet, as I speak with you, they are still putting it in good shape. So that is with the, with the policy. It's a very, very, very important policy that is going to affect this country positively. Now, about education. Usually, as a doctor, I'll give you just one connection between education and health outcome. And you see that educating our citizens is the single most important investment you can ever make as a country. When you study women who experience maternal mortality or die through pregnancy, the statistics are clear. Once you attain secondary education or beyond tertiary, your chances of experiencing that goes down drastically. If you take 100 women who died through pregnancy, about 70 to 80 finished at JHS. There is a connection between getting education and even staying alive. And the reason is simple. When you get higher education, you can get a good job. You can pay for your transport. You don't wait for your husband to give you money before going to the hospital. You have the cognitive capacity, your mind is good enough to understand what the doctor tells you about the dangers of your pregnancy. So education does a lot of wonders. And that is why no matter the cost, I think it's a venture that is worth investing in. This country has depended on timber, gold, cocoa, and non-oil for our survival. But the biggest single asset we can depend on in the next 10, 20 years is our natural resource, an educated citizenry. So that is about the policy and the good that we should expect from it. I also am honest enough to admit that it's not going to be easy. It is a national policy.
So, for instance, not to cut you, but if you look at the Daily Graphic newspaper of today, and I think the Times, the issue about funds, and one of the deputy ministers promising that the funds will be released by tomorrow. Now, I am a bit maybe worried a bit because schools will be reopening just early next week.
You know, fortunately for me, I've been in meetings where the Minister of Education was around. And I like a quote that came from one of the, how do you call it, the ones who steer the committee. He said, he quoted the Bible, that where your heart is, there would your what? Your treasure also be. The heart of this government for the past 8 to 10 years is in this free SHS. And there is no way we are going to be, how do you call it, encumbered or to be slow when it comes to paying the money. I think the Deputy Minister in charge of pre-tertiary has stated clearly that by the end of the week, we expect the funds to hit the accounts of the secondary schools. What we are doing is to pay 20% of the cost that will be needed to run it for the year. So that when finally they've streamlined all the admission, how do you call it, the list. You know, normally when you start, there are people who come in later and all that. So that when you have the final list, then the government will go ahead to pay the rest of the money. Like I said, the government is so committed. So
maybe you can explain. When they say by close of the week, is the money reflecting by close of week, which is tomorrow? Or they would see a figure in their accounts, but they can't touch it?
Oh, actually, I think there are rules and regulations, there are processes you go through when you receive money from central government. If the money, in fact, if the money hits the accounts of the second cycle institutions, they can access the money. Sometimes we have the money being released from government as in consolidated fund. It hits, how do you call it, the education ministry. They are supposed to disperse it. The target is to make sure that before the kids start school, the funds hit the accounts of the second cycle. And it should be in time so that they can make
but certainly a day or two before is not good timing, is it?
Oh, absolutely, because it's the first time. You know, it's the first time you are rolling out this policy on a national scale. So the bottom line is to make sure the money hits the accounts before they start school. The lessons we learn in the disbursement, in the times and all that will be factored in the subsequent year so that we have a better rollout than the first year. That is absolutely.
But just on the side, the letter that you read, are you paying the 500 and something?
I brought this just because it's so connected to this, but we have hundreds of these as an MP. Usually what I do is I'm unable to pay all. I have this from second cycle, I have tertiary institutions, I have a lot. So I try to do something about it.
How many offers do you get in a year or in a term?
Oh, I think from the experience I've had, you have from university, master's, PhD to second cycle, you receive an average of about 70 to 100 requests. Yes. And the average for second cycle is around 500 Ghana cedis. The average for the university is around 3,000. And masters and things normally is 6,000 to 10,000. So what we normally do is, I'm trying to set up a higher education fund. I'll do that between now and next year so that I prepare myself adequately to support a lot of people. Usually I pay around 30% of the request.
Out of the about 70?
No, 30% of the request you make.
Oh, so whatever anybody brings,
yes.
you make a contribution.
I try to hit 30%,
okay. So
1/3.
Okay,
Yes.
but is it every term or is every year?
You see, that is paying fees is a recurrent expenditure. Once somebody comes to you to help pay fees, you should be aware that subsequently they will come. That is why it's important to have a fund that is revolving so that you can assist. So they come
but they're coming to you because you're a member of parliament.
You see, they come to you because one, you are a leader. And when you're a leader, I always say it, there are things that are not necessarily your role or they are not your responsibility. But once you lead people, you cannot completely divorce yourself from their challenges. So they would definitely come to you. And they know it's not your duty to pay their fees. But they approach.
But are you obliged to support?
No. It's out of a lot of things. Usually I support. In fact, most of them are people you might not even know. It's not like they work with you during the campaign or they are party card holders or they are some you don't even know their house in the constituency. But once they've approached you, there's a human aspect. And like I always say, when you invest in someone in education, you can't go wrong. In the future, you never know where you meet the person.
But where do you get the funding from? Where do you get the monies that you use to supporting them?
We do a lot of things from the salaries we get. Beyond salaries, you have a common fund. You try to do few projects. You allocate some portion also to paying, helping people with their fees. And sometimes, like I talked about the fund, when you put the right structure, as in the fund, an education fund, you're able to get philanthropies and constituents to pay or to support. That is the best way to go. Yes.
Okay. Amazing. But is it something you're comfortable with doing? Because I mean, you are elected to make laws. Really, your job is parliament, and parliament is not a business. It's not a money making.
Yes. I always tell people, it's true. I'm a legislator, but one thing you cannot run away from is that you're a leader, and a leader is called a leader because you are in the lead, and people follow you. Once they are not there, someone said you are no more leading. You are taking a walk. The bottom line is that once you lead, when challenges come to you, you should not start to quote your strict responsibility.
So before you entered parliament, when you were doing your daily job as a medical doctor, were you getting these requests?
Oh, not on this scale. Of course, you get from a few relatives. But on this scale, no. But the reason why I am calm is that whenever I take on a responsibility, I don't give myself expectations. You know, I tell people, as I've done public health at the master's level, one of the things you are taught in stress management is that don't set expectations. When you have expectations and they are not met, that's where your hormonal level starts to rise. So once you don't have expectations, whatever comes to you, you see what you can do about it. And you do to the best of your ability, so you are calm. So if 1,000 people come to me, I don't complain. What can I do about it?
Do you see this trend ceasing or going down? If free SHS fully take its course?
Let me thank you so much. This was so important. It would have been very, very unfortunate if I had missed to make this comment. This is the extent to which we also, as leaders, would benefit from this program.
So MPs will be relieved?
My sister, we are going to be relieved. Not only relieved, but significantly relieved. This letter shouldn't show up in the next 2 years. Now, beyond the burden that has been taken away from us, in economics, when somebody is able to save 500 Ghana, that would have been invested in education. That money will not be put under the pillow. That money will find its way into another.
But this is
business.
500 Ghana that doesn't even exist.
No. But this student would. I don't think they are going to sleep. They've come to me. I'm sure they've gone to hundreds of people. Wherever they pass, they will pass places to make sure they get the money. So this will be paid definitely. Maybe 1 out of 100 will drop out. But the bottom line is that the hundreds of thousands of parents who will save money that would have otherwise been used to pay, who would have benefited from I'll not say generosity, but from the responsible nature of this government, they are going to invest this money in other ventures. And so the economy would experience increased activity, maybe in service provision, maybe in, in trading, maybe in other sectors. And that is good for the overall performance of the economy.
I wonder if all members of parliament will feel the way you're feeling.
Look, in fact, in parliament, behind the scenes, we have light discussions with even our friends on the other side. And they tell you in confidence that, man, you guys should be quick to roll out this thing because...
Really?
Yeah, of course, of course. I mean, when you meet a politician who is candid enough, they will tell you how this policy will take the level of burden that will be taken away from us. It's very important. And you know, for second cycle, a lot of people come to you because they are not in a position to work to support themselves. The good thing is that once they attain SHS, the certificate, the body is usually like matured enough to do some sort of work, like in between job to pay for exactly, you know,
to prepare you for tertiary, so you could even begin to save little money for yourself.
When I finished pre-sec, I worked with a pharmacy shop for about 2 years before going to tech, and for those 2 years, I was able to save some money. In fact, the first fees I was able to pay it myself. If I'd terminated at JHS, it would have been a problem. And you know what? This is a personal story. That's why it's the single most important reason why I always miss my mom. You know, she's passed. When I finished JHS, she called me and told me that, look, funds are very difficult to come by. She had some nice utensils that she had kept since I was born in the 80s. We went to someone who had resources in the constituency. I went with her. We went to sell the utensils to pay for pre-sec. And every time, I'm the first to pay my fees, not because she had the funds. She takes an advance loan from ADB. My sister, if my mother had not gone through these things, there's no way I could have been here. So I know how dangerous it is when you are crossing that river that lies between JHS and SHS. And I always say that as a doctor, when you let a student access SHS, their mental capacity is such that if they sit at home for 5 years and a philanthropist comes and says that, come, I want to train you in electronics, they have the mental capacity to handle any training in any field. But when you terminate at JHS and you happen to be on the streets after 7 years and I find you and I say, come, I want to train you in electronics or in advanced design, in clothing design, it's difficult to handle with the mind, even when the resources are there. That is why the best place to leave a citizen unattended to, assuming you've come to your West when it comes to finance, is SHS. So it is beyond the politics. This policy is very, very important.
Okay. All right. So we'll see how that goes. But you know, a lot of people are waiting to see. Let's roll out with this whole placement conversation. You know, people having.
You know why people are waiting to see? That's the nice thing that comes with every policy. When a policy demand is very huge and very challenging, people are just excited. The adrenaline is that let's see how they are able to do it. But I'm very hopeful that we can.
Okay. So from free SHS, we'll move to, but no, not quite. Are there people in your constituency who had challenges with the computer placement?
Oh, yeah.
What kind of interventions?
In fact, I would not name where I'll be going, but I have lists with me, people with challenges that I have to go and try and help to
so
sort out.
share some of it.
Oh, usually you have people who, you know, what was the new thing about this year was that in the past, if you choose, let's say, 3 schools, let's say you choose Presec, Akraka, and Kimbu, and you're unable to get any of the 3, in the past, they post you to a school which was not in your list.
Yeah.
But this time, what we are doing is that when you miss out on your 3, you are allowed to come in to choose from schools that are available. So that at least you have, but the challenge was that there was a lot of pressure on the system. So, but it's not an excuse.
And the deadline has passed because today's Thursday.
But we are rushed. We set deadlines for ourselves. When we realize it's not inuring to all of us, we would review it. I mean, this it's natural.
So the challenge with some of the members or your constituents is that they didn't get their 3 choice.
Exactly. There are others too who maybe got their second choice, but they were offered, let's say, day, not boarding.
Not boarded, okay.
And maybe you have someone who has been given a school in Koforidua in Accra, given day.
Okay.
So you have to go and see how you can help. So these are some of the things. These challenges are not in fact, in the past, we've had the same challenges, but we're supposed to minimize them across the years.
Okay. So that's the follow-up that you're making on behalf of. So this is about how many of them?
Oh, the good thing is that I've not had all of them coming to me.
Okay.
Some have pushed others to maybe relatives who also know people. You know, it's about trying to get someone who can make an input for you.
Okay.
I've had an average about 50 requests.
Wow.
Yes, I've worked on a few, but there are others that, in fact, because today is supposed to be the deadline, I'm trying
Yeah.
to see whether I can work on some 3 that I have now.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, let's move to this developing story because, as you know, our own Manasseh Azure Awene has been, putting out some bare facts, some revelations with regards to contracts with the Jospon Group. And here is what is latest today. Information available to JoyNews indicates that the executive chairman of the Jospon Group of companies has been invited by the police for questioning over some questionable contracts. The Criminal Investigations Department of the Ghana Police Service sources say wrote to Mr. Joseph Siao Ejapon following JoyNews' investigative series detailing questionable contracts involving subsidiaries of the Jospon Group. The letter was reportedly sent on Wednesday afternoon. JoyNews can also confirm that the investigation was authorized by the Minister of Justice and Attorney General Gloria Ekufu. The CID also wrote to JoyNews' lead investigative journalist, Manasseh Azure Awene, to assist with the investigations into a waste bin contract awarded to subsidiaries of the group. Mr. Awene, after 9 months of investigations, discovered that the local government ministry last year awarded a $74 million contract to 5 subsidiaries of the Jospon Group to supply 1 million waste bins and 90,000 bin liners. He found that the waste bins were not needed as a similar contract awarded by the ministry in 2014 had yet to be fully performed. 55,000 waste bins were yet to be taken from the suppliers. About 100,000 waste bins under that contract distributed to metropolitan, municipal and district assemblies were lying waste. In spite of this, the ministry awarded another contract to the 5 Jospon subsidiaries and a single sourcing to supply the waste bin. JoyNews also found out that the contract sum may have been inflated by about 130 million Ghana cedis. And as you may well be aware, if you've been following this series, we're not even able to cross-check information or get a lot more information officially from the Ministry of Local Governments, where mainly these contracts, these agreements were settled with. So that's it, because of an injunction that's in place to provide information. So this is where we are with this series that Manasseh has put out. What do you make of it?
Yeah, I think, first of all, let me say that as a government, we are very much interested in making sure that the resources of this country are applied prudently to make sure that nobody takes undue advantage of the state when it comes to making profits from us. We also are conscious enough to to admit that businesses must be treated fairly and not be unduly pressured by the state. That fine balance is important. Now, we've said as a government, there are 3 cardinal things that this government is interested in when it comes to public procurement or public transactions between government and agencies, whether individuals or private companies. The first one is that whoever deals with government should have the capacity and competence to execute the job that is at hand. The second one is the value for money audit. We want to make sure that in every transaction, what we are paying out or what we are procuring is the best we can have with the money that we are going to put on the table. And then thirdly, the rules, the procedures governing procurements ought to be followed. So these are the 3. With Jospon, I think Manasseh, let me congratulate him. That is not to say all his findings are absolutely true, but he spends time to go into matters before coming out, and that responsible journalism I commend highly. My issue is that no matter how credible Manasseh is, no matter how genuine he is with his investigative work, until we hear the side of Jospon and we go through these investigations which the CID is trying to start, we cannot certainly say that the government is guilty or Jospon is guilty or whatever. We need to go through a process. I believe in that.
Okay.
The NPP government, we believe in the rule of law, due process.
Okay. We'll
Yes.
continue with this. I've noted where you've stopped. You believe in due process. We'll continue with this. And Dr. Bernard Okoboy is a member of Parliament for Lejokoko. He's my guest, but in a very short while, we'll be joined also by a member of Parliament for Ningo Prampram, Mr. Sam Nate George. So stay with us. You're watching the AM Show. As AM Talk on the AM Show, and Mr. Sam Nate George is member of Parliament for Ningo Prampram. He's joined the conversation alongside Dr. Bernard Okoboy. So good morning to you.
Morning, and let me say I'm very big sorry for appearing late. There was a mix-up in the schedules, and I nearly missed the show. But I wouldn't miss the opportunity to be on the show with my good brother.
You made it. But we've talked about free SHS. I want to ask, do some of your constituents have issues, their children, with the placement system?
Yes.
As one of the...
Let me say very good morning to our viewers again, and then the good people of Ningo Prampram. And let me state that I think that the media has to change the nomenclature. We should stop calling it free SHS. We should call it government scholar. It's not. The government itself says it's not free SHS. The government itself. They say it's no longer a free SHS. It's a scholarship scheme for intelligent children. That's what
I'm not sure they've said that. It's for everybody.
No.
Everybody who...
They've raised the marking scheme. Everybody knows that if you had an aggregate 24, you got placements, you were going into SHS. But now they've raised the threshold. They've changed the marking scheme to make sure that they fail so many students, to reduce the number of students who go into free SHS. We're even discussing with WAEC, how come they've changed the marking scheme? Because when people were going into the JHS to write the BEC, they knew what the requirements were to qualify for SHS. Many students have been failed and told to go and resit.
But if they failed, it means that they didn't do well in the exam.
They've been failed because you have raised the passing mark. Everybody knew the pass mark was 50. Then when they are going to write the exam, because the principal of the school doesn't have enough space to pass all the students from GS3 to SS1, he says that, okay, I've raised the pass mark to 70. So somebody gets 60, and you tell the person he has failed. Is that fair? That is what the government is doing. They are doing a free government scholarship for privileged few. That is what it is. So we should not call it free SHS. And if you see the problem of placements, you know, they put in another clause there that says, oh, if we post you to this school and you refuse it, automatically you lose your free SHS. I mean, come on.
But
People,
there must be something.
I have parents in my constituency who chose 4 schools. 4 schools, and their children were not put in any of the 4. In fact, one of my constituency executives, her child has been put in a school for the deaf. Her child is not disabled, is not deaf. My deputy women organizer, her child has been posted to the school for the deaf.
Isn't that easy to change?
It tells you how ineffective and inefficient the system is.
But we've always had issues with computerized placements.
No, not this kind of issues.
You've
not had any time under the NDC or even under President Kufuor where because the computer placement started under President Kufuor. It started in 2007. In 2007, which was the first year, you didn't have parents demonstrating. No. Even under President Kufuor, you didn't have parents demonstrating. Under President Mills, it didn't happen.
So this is the
under
worst.
President Mahama, it didn't happen. Oh, it has come to the now go slow. It's happening.
Why do you think so?
Because the government is inefficient. Look, instead of them focusing on getting the priorities right, instead of them focusing on understanding the parameters and what it takes to implement a free SHS, they were more interested in outdooring a logo and finding an ambassador for free SHS who doesn't school in Ghana, has never schooled in Ghana, will never school in Ghana. You go and carry Jose Moreno to be the ambassador for Casapreco when he's never done Casapreco. Alomo Bites.
No,
Moreno drinks
wait.
Alomo.
Okay, now I'm a bit confused.
You know, so they have majored in the minors and minored in the majors. You can see Charles. Charles is complaining that even feeding grants, government is in arrears.
Oh, but is that new?
Oh, you see, that is why under the NDC, because we knew that we had not mastered the art of even paying feeding grants, we said that the free SHS should be progressively free. And in the 2015-2016 academic year, when we rolled out the progressively free SHS, 10,400 Ghanaian students enjoyed free SHS. Under the NDC administration, in the 2015-2016 academic year, 10,400 Ghanaian students enjoyed free SHS, where we are,
So
and it was a process to gradually expand it.
Can you define your free SHS?
Okay, our free SHS is simple. It is we have not made it a blanket free SHS. You see, it is progressively free. So it means that they have several line items, several line items in the bill for the senior high school students. So we have picked some of the items absorbed by government, and it cuts across SS1, SS2, SS3, and as it has cut across all those streams, what the plan was that gradually, as government is efficient in paying, if there are 5 line items, you are paying 3. The parent is paying only 2, so you subsidize that. Over a period of 2-3 years, you'll be able to absorb the remaining costs.
So eventually, you are going
that
to
is
absorb
the full
everything.
understanding of progressively free SHS. But you see, they've come. You've not finished the foundation, and you say you are building a roof. Where is the roof? Is it going to hang? That is the problem of this administration. And then let me tell you something.
So
this
is from what you're saying. This is not going to be successful.
Oh, it's a charade. Let me tell you something. They will face so many issues. You know why? And I just want to greet the Parents for Change and say good morning to them. You see, there was a group called Parents for Change that voted massively against the NDC because they said Nanado and the NPP had promised them that their children were going to get free SHS. I know people in my constituency who voted for the NPP because of free SHS. And today, some of them have brought me bills for their children to pay as MP. And I asked them, is Nanado not giving you free SHS? They say, what that I in Dangbe they say law. 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 It can 6 play 1 night. He has deceived them. On the 6 are done 1 night. Because you see, they are now bringing, when they've sent their children to the schools have given them bills. Now they have come back to me.
But
you know why?
But that's illegal. If they are fresh senior high school students, they shouldn't be getting bills.
No, wait,
unless it's a private school.
Now let me tell you why it is the greatest deception of the 21st century. Look, when Nanado was campaigning, did he tell the parents that if your child is in SS2 and SS3, you will not get free SHS? Did he tell them that?
Oh, but now they've well defined it.
After the people voted for you, look, people had their children in SS1. And they said, oh, I will vote for Nanado, so that I know that when my child, by the time he becomes president, my child will be going to SS2 and SS3. So Nanado is going to pay my child's school fee, so I'm voting for him. Then they vote for Nanado, he becomes president. Then Nanado comes to tell them that, you know what, me I'm a Maradona now, I'm a trickster, I've deceived you. I'm only going to pay for SS1. So it means that, look, 66% of parents who, on the basis of free SHS, voted for the president, Nanado to become president, have been deceived. 66%.
How did you arrive at this?
It's simple mathematics. Thank God for my engineering. Two out of 3 streams. There are 3 streams in the senior high school, and so in each stream you have, it's basically 3 streams. 2 of those streams are being disadvantaged. If you take a percentage, if I want to be accurate, it's 66.66666666% of students or parents who believed that Nanado will pay for them. Those in SS2 who were in SS1 and thought that their parents would not pay school fees, and so are eligible voters and voted. They've been deceived. Those in SS2 who are now in SS3, they've been deceived. Their parents too have been deceived. In fact, those in GSS 3 who also believed that they will get in SS1, who have gone into SS1 now, but they didn't get the school of their choice. And they are saying that, oh, I made 4 choices. You didn't give me any of my 4 choices. So at least change me back to one of my 4 choices. They say if you change, you forget free SHS. So you realize that in reality, we may be hitting about 75%.
But all this should make you happy as a member of the National Democratic
Congress. You see, it will make me happy if I was a sadist. But I am not. I'm a patriot. I love this country. And I think, oh no. You misuse the word patriot. You see, I think about the ordinary Ghanaian. I'm a social democrat.
So how you help to resolve your constituents?
As social democrats, our concern is not the state, but the masses. For them, their concern is the state and not the masses. So the ordinary parent in my constituency, the ordinary citizen, the parent in my constituency,
them fix these challenges that
he knows his government is owing us common fund. They've given us only first quarter of this year. So there's not even enough money to be able
Isn't that
to
a
use the
normal
support.
trend as well? Isn't
Oh,
that like the regular thing?
But when the president told us he was in a hurry, you see, no other president has come to parliament to tell us he's in a hurry. But Nana came and said, oh, Nana opened them. His Nana opened them.
So
you say, well, Nana go slow, Nana traffic jam. You are the one who came to tell us you are in a hurry. You are in a hurry and you can't
So
perform.
you're not expecting any delays in the release of funds?
The president is beginning to behave like a 2 minutes man.
Context.
Context.
Don't worry.
In the delivery of his promises, he's behaving like a 2 minutes man.
I think a short one. The president obviously is not the chief examiner.
I thought you had finished talking.
No, just a quick.
No, you have the right. Yes.
The president is not the chief examiner at WAEC. I mean, they set the benchmarks, and students have to. I don't even want to go to the past. When the NDC took over in 2009, the pass rate was going down. What they did was that they lowered the benchmark so that all of a sudden we had 99% pass when it's BCE. It was a change. If he's honest, and I will tell you, the minimum was reduced further downwards. We don't want to go into it. The bottom line is that so far over 550,000 students have been placed. There's a deficit of around 40,000, which we are trying to solve. The parents of these 550,000 students are grateful to the MPP for being bold enough to start this policy. You know what? When they started the 3 years instead of the 4 years, they did not start and block. They started with the first years. You always roll out systematically. So that's what we are doing. With deception, I think once again, the parents of the 550,000 students know that it was not deception. And we as a government, he mentioned 33%, 66 disappointed. Next year, another 33% will come to add. In 2 years' time.
So you agree with the statistics?
No. Oh, but if, let's say 100 parents have their children in SHS, first year, second and third year, share it equally, and they feel that they should all benefit, and we tell them it is being rolled out.
They don't feel. You promise them that they will all benefit.
So then you agree that you've deceived them.
No, it's not deception.
Because that was not the expectation.
You agree to that. It's not deception. When you mention a policy, in the rollout, you have the details, but the interpretation by the one listening might be different from you, and you must be honest enough not to fight the one who interprets. We tell them that we are going to roll out free SHS. The fellow interprets that, okay, my son is in the second year, I also benefit. And then in the rollout, you understand, yes.
But in the communication, you said your children will go to school for free.
No, I gave you a very classic.
He says the voters don't understand English.
No. I gave you a very classic example where the NDC said when they come, they were going to bring the 4 years of SHS back to 3 years. They didn't bring all the students to 3 years. They started with the first entrance. So in rolling out the policy, this has been the history, not because it's just history or convention, but to have it done effectively. Because the others have started with the system. So you let them phase out. And then in the next 2 years, all those in, SHS would have been covered by this government. So we've not deceived, but we also not contend or fight those who interpreted that they should benefit no matter. I've gotten the paper. When they came, I did not begrudge them. They did not come saying that, we are disappointed in Nanado. They admit that we've understood the policy guidelines, but we are not covered, so try and help us out. Those who are entering fresh.
Yes, we've talked about it.
Good,
in detail.
exactly. Yes. Those who are entering school for the first year, none of them is going to come to him with these documents. So he must be grateful to this government. Otherwise, if he has 10 requests, it could have been 15 or 20.
Yeah, that's true.
That's
true. First years are not coming to you for assistance.
Let me just state the fact that if we had even continued with our progressively free SHS, if they had continued, and effectively, what they are doing is a progressively free SHS. They are reverting to what we had promised. They have moved away from their campaign promise. Now they are telling us that the Ghanaian electorate, we didn't understand the English in their manifesto, so we had our own interpretation, which was wrong. So they will not begrudge us our interpretation. I mean, what can you interpret? How can you interpret? I will give you free SHS. To mean that if your child is in SHS2 or in SHS3, he's not part. SHS2 and SHS3 is not part of SHS.
You know the funny thing?
But you see, for me, it's not a problem.
But you should be happy.
Yeah.
Like he said, you're not getting a lot of bills because
let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. I'm not happy because if we vote for a government and vote for change, we expect a better system than what existed. That is why we voted for change. Hey, he says that. I'm speaking as the generality of Ghanaians. Okay, majority of Ghanaians, as per the results, voted. So I mean, we all have to respect the will of the majority of Ghanaians.
No, when
The same-
you said when
but you
we
see,
voted for
you said how many? 540,000.
50,000.
550,000 students have been placed, and so their parents are grateful. In the senior high school system, we have 1.7 million children. So take 550 out
But
of
not
1.
all of them qualified. Not all of them passed.
No, you're
No,
not
he's
getting
talking
it.
about from first year
I'm
to-
saying from first year to third year, we have
Oh, okay.
1.7 million children. So if you take out 550, it means that 1.15 million.
But next year,
But
it's going to come down.
1.15 million,
But that-
1.15 million children have been disenfranchised.
But that
and
is
then
still taking
I'm
a
coming,
bit of the
I'm
burden
coming,
off.
I'm coming. And I am expecting a parent to go to court and sue the government. You know why? Take the 1992 Constitution, the directive principles of state policy. It is clear that government should not carry out any intervention or policy that is discriminatory in nature.
But the progressively free, isn't it also
I
discriminatory?
have the answer. I
Oh
have the
no!
answer. Let me help you.
Let me show you
help
the
you with
discrimination.
that
Don't help me.
Okay,
Wait.
let him land and then I'll come
Wait.
to you.
Ekikibo. The discrimination in this policy is that I am a parent and I have 2 children. One is in SHS 1, one is in SHS 2. Then you bring me a bill for Kwame and say that Kwesi there he's going free. What kind of discrimination is that?
Let me answer.
So you expect somebody to go to court on that?
When exactly? Or
You
we are
could-
friends.
you could
Or we
also
are
go to
friends.
court.
Or we are friends. I don't have a child in senior high school. My locus may be questioned. My child is now in kindergarten. But you see, between the 2 of us, we are friends and we live next to each other. And then your child is in SHS 1. Your child goes, you pay taxes, I pay taxes. And then the government uses our collective tax to pay for your child and doesn't pay for my child. What kind of discrimination is that?
Let me answer.
4 legs good, 2 legs bad.
Please
We are now living in a
Please
George
come in and
Orwell
then,
animal farm in
and
Ghana.
then we'll finish off the Just One conversation.
Just a quick one. The discrimination he's talking about, it already exists. When I have 2 children in the SHS, assuming, one is in Tamale Secondary School and one is in Achimota, one receives feeding grants under their government. This has been the rule, the norm, all these years. So discriminatory policy intended to fill a particular gap or address a problem is already in existence in this country. Those up north, and as far as former President John Mahama's time, he said the father told him, we are all packing from Achimota to the north because over there you enjoy some level of free education. So that's answer, please. This is a fact.
This is not an answer to the question.
Please.
So how then do you explain that
but
2
wait,
children in
please.
Achimota,
Wait,
2
wait,
children in
yeah.
Achimota
Yeah,
school,
please.
one is enjoying, one is
So
not enjoying.
I've explained that if you
You've
have
not explained
So,
though.
so,
You've not
let me
explained.
land. If you have 2 children, one is in Tamale Secondary and one is in Achimota, their fees are different. One receives feeding grant free, paid by government from the top, not south. Nobody has raised issues because it's a policy that is addressing a particular problem. Number 2.
So what is the
Please,
policy?
please,
What
number 2.
problem
I'm coming,
is
I'm
making
coming,
one
I'm
child
coming,
in
I'm
Achimota
Relax,
enjoy a
relax.
grant and the other in
You
Achimota
know,
not
a
enjoy one?
citizen has already been to court in this country, at the Supreme Court, saying that the government is flouting the Constitution by not making education free for everybody, because that is in the Constitution I captured. The ruling from the court was clear that the dictates of the Constitution can only be supported when government has the means. So government hasn't done that, not because deliberately wants to deny others, but it's about finance. So that is also clear. So all his issues are already cleared, fortunately for him.
You see,
all right.
tell
Let's
Dr.
move on to
Okoboy,
Just One.
this is education. oh. This is not symptoms of malaria or typhoid.
Let's move on to
He's
Just
mixing
One.
it up. Just
So
one.
before you came in, we were talking about the invitation because we're getting news from very reliable sources that the chief or the executive chairman of the Just One group of companies has been invited by the police for questioning. And this is following a series of revelations made by Manasseh Azariah-Wene in his documentary. It's actually a series, so it's been rolling out. And Dr. Okobai, did you quite land?
No, okay, so basically let me say that, let me land by saying that when you're a public officer or you do business with the government, if for any reason the police calls you or makes a request for you to come, it should not be interpreted as intimidation or witchcraft. Once you deal with the state, I mean, nobody's above the law. And so the straight point I'm making is that we as a government, we don't believe anybody is guilty until processes has been completed and a competent law, with the competent jurisdiction has given a ruling. That's number 1. 2, I think people should be careful in the comments they make. You know, I hear people who say that, I mean, why is it that a particular businessman is hounded? We need to support Ghanaian business or that. Businesses must operate in conformity to the rules of the land, the laws of the land. when they break the law, there are two things that happens. Either they get undue advantage over others, as in they unfairly beat others in competition, or the state loses funds. We don't get value for the money we put in. So this is very important for the forward march of the country. In all these processes, what I'm happy about is that we operate under a jurisdiction of rule of law. And any individual who feels unfairly treated by the state funnily can access the courts. And I always say it, at the courts, unguarded discretion is not there. Bias does not exist. You appear before people who can tell the state that you faulted and you should even pay money to an individual. I'm happy that we have all these arrangements.
Okay. So, George?
You see, this matter, I'm also going to wait for the CID to finish their investigations.
Okay.
But I want to commend Manasseh Azuri-Awuni for the work he's done. I hold the view, and I actually put it on my Facebook page yesterday, that if we say we are serious about the fight against corruption, we must be ready as a nation to name, shame, and prosecute not just the public officials found responsible or guilty of corruption, but the sponsors of corruption. Because you see, when you take out a public servant, Okoboy is a minister, you say, oh, he did something wrong, so you sack him, and you name him and shame him, and so you sack him. Okoboy did not on his own go out to go and get corrupt. It is a corporate entity that approached him and corrupted him. So when you take Okoboy out of the equation and you left that corporate entity that approached him with a juicy deal that corrupted him, you have not solved the problem. Because whoever comes in there again is going to be offered a better deal to make that person corrupt. So until, as a nation, we begin to focus on the sponsors, I refer to them as sponsors of corruption. I've come from a government, I've come from the immediate past government. I've had dealings, or let me call them run-ins, not dealings, with subsidiaries of the Jospon Group. And not all of them have been very pleasant. That I can state on authority. I have problems with that group of companies' modus operandi and the way they operate their business. It's their corporate policy to run their business that way. But I think that I have a problem with it. And
it's not legal, is it?
It is
it's not illegal.
It is not in my position to determine legality or illegality. Okay. That is for the law court.
But you just don't like it.
From a moral point of view, I am uncomfortable with it.
Well, so what is it about?
That one. Don't let me start talking, and then the CID will also invite me like they invited Manasseh. I have my constituency to deal with.
It means that you can assist in the investigations. If you have information that can help with the investigation.
They are investigating Desbins and Desbin liners.
You know, refusing,
I was at communications. I had nothing to do with Desbin and Desbin liners.
Refusing to assist the investigative authorities, that alone is also...
Have I been requested to...
I'm not talking about you.
But pardon you. You know, but the point is, personally, that's my view. Okay. I believe in supporting Ghanaian businesses and growing Ghanaian businesses, but it must not happen at the detriment of the Ghanaian taxpayer. And you see, when people today are saying that, I've heard some people come up and say, but why is Joy FM, why is Manasseh attacking Jospon? Really? Where were those people when Ibrahim Mahama's business was being destroyed and it's still being destroyed? Or one is more Ghanaian than the other? What's the source for the goose, the source for the gander? You understand me? I think that we need to get to the bottom of this issue. I still maintain that the corporate sponsors of corruption must be dealt with and prosecuted. It is going to serve as a deterrent. And then I think that, again, we need to be careful about the kinds of monopolies that we create. In this particular case, you are hearing that they contracted 5 companies, and all 5 companies, one group of company. Is it that a certain unhealthy monopoly has been created? You understand me? These are some of the issues we need to be considering as a nation. I have had my issues with the Jospon Group and some of the things that happened. I mean, I know that at a point in time, the Zoom Lion people, those who clean our streets, I mean, they're supposed to be in the lower echelons of society. That's how come they find themselves in those positions. And that's why I said from a moral perspective, I have certain problems with the modus operandi, because the government pays about 400 Ghana cedis per head. And at a point in time, these people were being paid 50 cedis. And 350 cedis was being kept by the company as administrative charges. When noise was made about it, it was increased to 100 Ghana. I mean, if you're a Christian, more so an elder of a Church of Pentecost, I mean, certain things are just.
But morality is not law.
Yes, and that's why I'm saying that if you profess quite easily you're standing as a Christian, then morality must be an issue for you. You must ask yourself that if you're being given 400 Ghana cedis for the services of a staff of yours, and you're going to even keep some for, and I don't have a problem with you retaining some for administrative charges and all of that.
Operational cost.
Operational cost and all of that. But to keep 350 out of 400 Ghana cedis. And eventually when a Ferrari rises, you keep 300 out of 100. I don't know how much they're being given now. But it is unconscionable. You can't think about it. It means you're growing fat and milking the poor. That is how I see it. And that's what I'm saying, that from a moral point of view, I mean, for somebody may not have a problem with it. Someone might see it as a fantastic business model. I'm a Christian. And I think that it is wrong. I think that it is morally, that's why I've not said it is legally wrong. I've said it is morally wrong.
Okay.
And again, I have a problem with some of the means by which we've had contracts, especially when the contracts involve Jospong. Okay, some people in the past administration may not be happy with me, but I mean, I've always maintained this whilst we were in government, that I think that some of the contracts that have been signed, I mean, look at this toll levy thing. It was signed under the NDC administration, but I sat on this platform and criticized it. I was in parliament and criticized it, and I said I went on Facebook and said that I'm ready to face a penalty from the government because I will not pay the toll tax, and I was going to lead a citizens demonstration if the government had imposed it not to pay, and let the police arrest all of us and take us to court, but we will not pay, because I couldn't for the life of me understand how you would tell me that one company should be responsible for towing all vehicles in this country. So when a taxi driver in my constituency who is flying Chopoli to Panchendo, who I am sure the road safety management do not even have on their district map, when his car breaks down and you are taking that toll tax from him, who goes to tow his vehicle? And I'd always said that, look, you cannot create a monopoly and expect the citizens to enjoy the benefits of it. And that is my problem with the way we sign contracts, especially when it's with one company. He's a smart businessman. You can't take it away from him. He identifies problems, quickly finds the solutions. But then, my question has always been, why don't we say that all the other telcos should fold up and only MTN should operate? It's because we want competition. Those who remember, when MTN and Vodafone, then at that time, Ghana Telecom started, if you wanted a chip, you will suffer before you get a chip. And even when you get it, they were doing connection and you pay 2 million, 2.5. Today, they are giving you the chip for free and even giving you free credit. Vodafone is saying that if you even want recharge card, you can use for other people. Competition. Competition always gives the clients, the citizenry, better services. But when you say that you are creating a monopoly for one man, the day he says, look at what happens even with the attempt by Professor Mills and the Mahama administration to break the monopoly in the waste collection, where AMA decided to zone and bring in other waste collection companies. You still realize the problems that we have with efficient waste collection. You still realize that he still has a monopoly over the dumping sites, the landfill sites. And so you remember there was a time under President Mahama, where he decided that they had closed the landfill site because they were owed money. And Accra started stinking in less than 3 days. Why do we run a country like that? Where one man is made so powerful, he can create an epidemic, a health epidemic. He's a doctor, I will tell you. If we have refuse lining our streets for 3 months or 3 weeks, the kind of epidemic that can cause us in our state, it is wrong. We must change the model.
I guess it's a good thing that the CID has stepped into this.
They should investigate and let us find out. For me, all I've said here, I have said on the basis of morality, not law. The CID is going to go into the legalese and find out if any laws have been broken. If laws have been broken, they should name and shame. Okay. I just hope that our CID is about being bought.
We'll just spend 2 minutes, because I thought we would touch on the Togo issue as well. But if you can let go of the 2 minutes and then talk on this issue.
It sounds very refreshing listening to a social Christian. It's a social democrat. It's a social democrat and a social Christian.
What do you mean by that? My bishop is going to take strong exception to that. Bishop Charles Adinasai, I agree with you.
This brings a quote from Mahatma Gandhi to mind. He said, referring to the English, their former colonial masters, he said if he had met Christ, he would have been a Christian. But unfortunately for him, he met the Christians and not the Christ. You know, That's not to say I've met this Christian, but to let you know that it's good to profess, to be one. Now,
so what will you tell your finance minister who comes to parliament and is always preaching? Instead of reading the budget, he's preaching.
I just quoted Gandhi. I've not.
The next time finance minister comes, when he comes to the budget, I will quote Gandhi for him.
Let me land by saying that the morality is also important. In fact, the moral code is always higher than the legal code, because people can always find way around the legal code, but the moral code chases you. It's in the conscience. So that is very important. But the bottom line is that this government is interested in seeing businesses do well, but they have to do well on the right path, not through other paths. And I'm not saying he's done something wrong. Let's finish the processes and establish the facts.
Okay. Just, one sentence on the developing Togo situation.
I'm just going to sound a note of caution. If there's any president in the sub-region that is fomenting trouble in Togo, he should stop. Case closed.
Is there somebody
I'm not going to say more than that.
You've heard of something?
I'm not going to say more than that.
Yeah.
But if there's any president in the sub-region who is fomenting...
West Africa?
Yes, West African sub-region. Who is fomenting the problems in Togo, they should stop.
What I would say with the Togo situation is that the worst things that happen in this world, the wildest atrocities, happen not because bad men are in abundance, but because good men keep quiet. When Gaddafi had issues with his people, fine, as a president, he had a right to be firm. But when he was going to chase his own people out of the streets, most African leaders were quiet. We've had other African leaders, in fact, with this Gambian gentleman, Jammeh. Jammeh was misbehaving for long, and he was tolerated by most African leaders. All I'm asking is that African leaders must be firm to look at their colleagues in their face and tell them that this is wrong, that is right. Even if it's in a diplomatic manner, we should make appeals to them to do the right thing. When the Kenyan results were declared, I remember I was on one of your platforms. Someone said, oh, but they've declared the results. Everything went fine. I said, events leading to the election are as important as the day of the election itself. The killing of their IT gentleman, the sacking of some observers, and the treatments. I was not surprised when the courts showed that.
we had one observer who, okay, well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want us to, yes. But sure. my issue is that we should be fair to events, not to keep quiet because, oh, we want peace. So let's just show that we have to be fair to ourselves as Africans.
Dr. Okoboy, thank you very much for your time. And Mr. George, thanks for being
social
here.
Christian.
So if he had met you
yes.
first. All right, so that's it for AM Talk today.